Thank you very much, Elmira and Evelyn as well, and all the participants. It's really a pleasure for me to share some of the studies that I've been conducted in the past period, let's say last decade, about conspiracy belief in general. But since the COREnet COST Action is actually dealing and is associated with the migrant and migration issues. That was the specific topic of one of my studies that I'm going to share results with you today. So actually, the study was published already in the sociological research online. So on the first slide, you have the link to the study. Published paper about this issue. The name of the paper is With God We Distrust, the Impact of Conspiracy Theory Beliefs About Migration in Serbia, of values in conspiracy theory beliefs about migration in Serbia. I also have to mention that this was actually result of the short-term scientific mission that I've been granted under the COREnet COST Action, and I went to Madrid to work with my collaborator Turkay Salim Nefes, who is also a part of this COREnet action. So we analyzed actually, first we together prepared the instrument about conspiracy theories and beliefs about the migration in Serbia, and then we also prepared the paper together with the third collaborator, Milica Vrdović. She was a former assistant of mine from my university, from my faculty. So if you are interested more about this topic, you can read this paper, but also a lot of other different papers that are dealing with these specific topics, because in conspiracy theory, this is highly connected with Great Reset or Great Replacement conspiracy belief, and it's really a huge number of articles is dealing about this issue nowadays. Even more because researchers and scientists are looking into the digital platforms, trying to see how great reset or great replacement is presented in the different online platforms. But this wasn't the topic of our research that I'm going to present it right now. I also present this paper, the results, in the COREnet conference in Tirana in Albania last year, and also at the conspiracy theory conference at the University of Miami in the United States of America. First, a few introductory sentences that we actually are, I would say, all aware about. We are witnessing the age of migration since the last decades have been characterized by a stormy and turbulent migration worldwide, and Serbia also has a great challenge regarding this issue, because migration represents social and also political challenge here in Serbia. Since the data are from Serbia and we are analyzing specifically the adult population of Serbia, I would actually refer much more to this country, although we can see the similarities between the countries, not only it's not Serbia. Is not like specific regarding this issue. Serbia is at the transit route of the migrants. They are starting from Turkey, Middle East, and then entering Greece and then North Macedonia. then Serbia trying to enter the European Union, and also to end in some of the European countries. So migrations were actually a huge challenge in the last decades, and also it was a question and the issue for a lot of elections, a lot of political party strategies. So we wanted here to see how the general native population actually react to those narratives that are represented in the media, and also in political public discourse in Serbia, and I would say in other countries and as well. Despite the fact that there are actually that it's a huge challenge for all countries in the world, I would say that in Serbia there are not a lot of scientific studies regarding this issue, measuring actually the attitudes and maybe how those attitudes can be modified or challenged regarding the migrants, the attitudes of the native population toward the migrants. So the number of studies some of the studies that are present in Serbia are actually predominantly oriented to intensity, then transition directions, characteristics of the migrant population, difficulties that they face, regularity of transition, push or pull factors. And a lot of studies are actually conducted by the NGOs, non-governmental organizations, so they are not very scientifically based. I don't mean to say that they are irrelevant, they are highly relevant, but for some, let's say, scientific uses, there are only a few studies that are conducted under some strict scientific methodologies. However, as I mentioned, since the migrants are actually very present in the political and public sphere, in media discourse, almost I would say in a negative way more than in a positive way. We assume that immigrants are a popular target of conspiracy theories, and that hostility toward migrants in terms of behavior and actions, real actions in the real world, can be spread, or maybe conspiracy theories might be a great motivator to hostile behavior toward the migrants and a migrant population. So that's why we wanted to see what's going on and what is the reaction, I mean, the attitude of the general population in Serbia. And we decided to investigate this topic because we thought it's also important not only to investigate the migrant issues and problems that they face, but also to see how the native population might actually to see what are the attitudes toward the migrations and migrants in Serbia, and also maybe to see is there any public or media strategy that those attitudes can be modified in some way. But before the real data from this study that is the main focus of this webinar, I would like just to pay your attention a little bit on the context in Serbia. For example, this table presents the social distance toward the results of 5 different studies conducted from 2017 to 2019. So in 3 years, all of them are nationally representative, meaning that the numbers and the data can be generalized to adult population in Serbia. So we measured the social distance toward different minority groups in Serbia. So it was Croats, Albanians, Hungarians, LGBT population, and migrants. Before the migrant crisis, since I was following this issue for a long time, I'm a senior researcher, so LGBT and Albanians were actually the group of people toward adult population in Serbia had the greatest distance. So they did not want them to be their neighbors, to live in their country, to work with them or to be a boss of them at the organization where they work. So those are the questions that social psychologists are using to measure the social distance toward different marginal groups. But then in during the migration crisis, we can see in this table that the migrants are actually the groups that Serbian adult population have the distance the most. So that's the first conclusion from this table. So that comparing to other marginal groups that minority groups that we have been following in those studies, migrants are the group that the population is adult population in Serbia have the greatest distance. And also the second conclusion from this table is that this distance is getting higher toward the 3 years period. So the lower number on this table, meaning the higher distance. And the numbers were from 1 to 5. So 1 means high distance, low acceptance, and 5 mean low distance, higher acceptance. So we can see that the migrants are really, that the native population in Serbia are actually very distant from the migrants, and also that this attitude that is very nearly associated with the behavior actually is getting worse during the 3 years period. Unfortunately, I don't have the recent data for the recent study from the recent studies regarding this issue, but we may conclude, or maybe we can interpret it that following the public opinion and the public discourse, that this issue is not getting better. So, from different studies that I've published in some of the international or national journals, I would say that the Serbian population is actually characterized with several characteristics: high endorsement of social conservatism, high endorsement of conspiracy mentality, meaning that a conspiracy mentality means that it's a characteristics that any activity or any action we interpret in conspiratorial way, no matter the specific content of the conspiratorial thinking. And neglecting of EU integrations. More than half of the population are actually against EU integrations. And also we see the increase of social distance toward the marginal groups, especially the migrants. So why do I mention those facts that are measured on a representative samples? It's not something that, we have been analyzed qualitatively looking at the media or discussing with people. Those are the measured parameters, the measured data from the studies conducted on a national representative samples. And all of that is actually important for this study that I'm going to present right now. That was actually the main focus of collaborative paper of Turkaj Nefes, Milica Vrdović, and me. Well, we wanted to see what are the factors that influence conspiratorial beliefs about migrants and immigration. We not only wanted to see how much people endorse conspiracy belief regarding the migrants. We also wanted to see what are the indicators that we can use to predict the high endorsement of conspiracy belief regarding the migrants. So in May 2022, we used a national representative sample to select our sample size of 1,000, almost 1,200 people that were actually participating in the studies, in these specific studies, and all of them were actually citizens of Serbia and adult population, meaning 18 and plus years old. So our hypothesis was that people who hold values that are attached to national sovereignty, conservatism, and religiosity would be more likely to believe in conspiracy theories about migrants and immigration. So we wanted to see, to investigate whether there are some values and some specific attitudes regarding the actual geopolitical issues that are important for the Serbian population. And that if we know those values of our population or our specific woman or man, can we, knowing them, predict whether they will be more likely to endorse conspiracy belief regarding the migrants or not? So we were looking in a quantitative study about the predictors of conspiracy belief toward the migrants and migrant population. The research was founded by the Institute of Political Study, the exact research, the quantitative study, and it was also result of a short-term scientific mission that I've mentioned before. So first, let's look at the endorsement of conspiracy belief regarding toward the migrants. We actually developed this scale consisting of 11 items. Some of the items were used from the other instruments that people mostly from the States, those were Gaston and Luscinski that I mentioned here, but there are some others that were used to measure a conspiracy belief in other countries, but some of them actually we invented or we prepared for this study. We wanted also to cover different content, I mean, different thoughts, different attitudes towards the migrants, and to see whether people will agree with our items and the statements or not. The scale was from 1 to 5 again, so you can, in this first column with the numbers, you can see the average mark, mean of those scales. And the items of those items, and the items are actually ranked from the top one, the mostly endorsed, to the 11th item that is endorsed the least. And we wanted to cover different content, meaning different, well, to see whether, for example, the first thought of us was to see whether some of the content toward the conspiratorial thinking toward the migrants might be more important than the others. For example, whether it will be economical threat or a security threat or a threat regarding the religion, because Serbia, the most population of Serbia is actually Orthodox religion. So knowing that a lot of people, the majority of the migrants are from the Muslim religion, we wanted to see whether the religiously threat, I mean the threat of the religion identity would be the highly endorsed or maybe the main content of the conspiratorial thinking, or maybe those security issues or economic issues. But on the last column, you can see the factor loadings. That's a result of the factor analysis, which is showing us the statistical analysis that this is one factor. So There is no matter if it's a religious threat or economic or security threat. If I believe in one, I will believe in all other conspiracy thinking about migrants. So let's see the whole statements. Politically powerful people are creating an immigrant crisis to profit from it. That's the statement that the people mostly agree with. Then immigrants represent a threat to safety of women population. That's a security issue, like a security threat, especially toward the female population. Then immigrants represent a threat to national security. Migration is a hidden process of the Islamization of Europe, religious content. Majority of the immigrants are Islamic fundamentalists or belong to Islamic fundamentalist groups. Migration has been a threat to economic stability. This is a predominantly economic threat. The government is hiding the true cost of immigration to taxpayers and society. Immigration is a form of genocide for the Christian religion. Immigration is a form of genocide of white population. Those are great reset and great replacement actually statements. And the last two is like specifically the hidden process of some powerful people behind the process. In the last 20 years, the government has deliberately attempted to make the Serbian society more ethically diverse via its immigration policy. And the last one, the people that actually endorsed the lease. In the last 20 years, the government has deliberately attempted to make the Serbian society more religiously diverse via its immigration policy. So those were our questions. And in this slide, for example, there is a graphical presentation of that shows us that we have a little bit higher endorsement than average among the representative adult population of Serbia. So, meaning that we are slightly more willing to agree with those statements that I've previously read. So first, no matter, well, the content of the first conclusion from this descriptive analysis is that it doesn't matter what is the specific content of the conspiratorial belief toward the migrants, whether it is connected to some religious issues or economic issues or security issues. Well, it means that if I believe in one, then I will believe in all others. And so this is one factor, one indicator, variable, as psychologists call those measures. And the second is that people in adult population in Serbia are slightly more willing to agree than the average with all the statements that I've read, but nevertheless that we have, well, as you've seen in the previous slide, that we can make some list of top 5 or top 3 conspiratorial belief regarding migrations and migrants that are endorsed the most. But actually, even the last one, the last item, for example, it's around 3. Well, the mean, the average mark, it's around 3. So that means that or to almost all conspiratorial belief, the representative population in Serbia is accepting as average, and then for the top 1 or top 5 items, we even agree the more. So this graph actually shows us what is the distribution, well, of the conspiratorial belief in the among the population, adult population in Serbia. That was the first part of our actually study, because we wanted to see what is the native attitude of the native population in Serbia toward the migration. And of course, we were not actually surprised by the results. Because if you look at the media, listen to the media, or look at the social media, online or traditional media, you can see that the migrants and immigrants are actually a target of conspiratorial thinking, of hate speech. They are not perceived as victims, they are perceived as a threat, and that is how they are actually presented especially in online media. That is a part of our second collaborative studies under this COREnet, because we are collecting data from Croatia, Turkey, and Serbia, and we are actually analyzing the online, mostly read to online media platforms in all three countries. Uh, so. Um, I've been analyzing the results right now, and I've seen that in all three countries, I would say, especially in Serbia, in mostly read online platforms, migrants are actually presented as a threat, especially security threat. But we will present. I think Anita and Zuha will present this data in Kaunas. We are leaning toward the end of this presentation, and the final thing that we wanted to see in this paper, as I mentioned before, is that we wanted to see what values are associated to a conspiratorial belief toward the migrants, and also whether we can, using the statistical analysis, predict higher endorsement of conspiratorial thinking toward the migrants, using some kind of some measures, and values. So we actually asked for a religiosity identity, using a very famous scale with 5 or 6 questions. And the social conservatism, that is also a very well-known scale in psychology in general, because it's used a lot, and we ask people actually what are their opinion towards specific things like abortion, then arms, for example, and police and government and things like that. And based on all those attitudes, we are forming the variable social where they stays on the left-right continuum of political orientation. And also we wanted to see some, well, let's say, actual political issue like supporting EU integration or not. And here on this slide we see the distribution, the frequency of those variables, values. So we can say that social conservatism, that the adult population of Serbia is also leaning toward a little bit toward the right, and we are like the average religion with a religious identity, and also support less than half of the population support EU integration. But those are the numbers from 2022. I'm not sure what are those numbers right now. It would be nice to see. We actually use those variables, those values, to predict the conspiracy belief. And according to our hypothesis on this slide, we can see that those are statistically significant values that predict conspiracy belief toward the migrants. So the more the more the person is conservative, or the more it's leaning, I mean, it's he or she is identified with the religion, the more he or she will endorse a conspiratorial belief toward the migrants. And if it's like anti-EU integration, it will also predict the EU, conspiratorial higher endorsement of the conspiratorial belief toward the migrants. And the study has actually several conclusions. So maybe I can mention again some of them, that religiosity is an important predictor of beliefs in conspiracy theories about migrants. So people who were likelier to believe in conspiracy accounts toward the migrants if they describe themselves to be more religious. Then social conservatism is another statistically significant predictor of beliefs in conspiracy theories in Serbia. People who reported values, more conservative values toward the important social issues and social themes tended to believe more to conspiratorial issues and conspiratorial theories about migrants. And people whose value system contained anti-EU sentiments were likelier to be convinced by conspiratorial belief about migrants and immigration in Serbia. That means that we can actually make or have the association of all those values and also the attitudes that we measured. And once we know one or two of them, we can predict the third or fourth. So it's like a general view of looking into the society right now, having in mind all those important issues that we mentioned. So when people felt higher levels of attachment to their countries, or held defensive values about Serbian nation, but also to Orthodox religion in general, they were predisposed to believe in the conspiracy theories that presents migrants and immigrations as a conspiratorial threat. So they don't want to look at the controversial maybe issues regarding the immigrations or complex issues regarding the immigrant questions. They rather stick to some conspiratorial belief and view them as a security threat, economic threat, and also a threat to our religion. This is, of course, actually guided by the Weberian theory and, well, rationalized in that way. I, as a social psychologist, we try to explain this kind of this data into different contexts of different theories. Me, as a social psychologist, actually, I was looking at different platforms of how different attitudes toward different social issues are grouping together, and what we can do as a society and as a psychologist to actually discuss more about this issue and to present them in a different way, and maybe to try to lower the endorsement of conspiratorial beliefs toward the migrants in the future. So thank you. I think it's all. I mentioned all of the co-authors of the published paper and also other papers that we've prepared. So I'm happy to hear your questions or maybe comments, critiques.
Professor Jasna, thank you very much for your insightful presentation. And it was a very interesting focus on migration and the conspiracy beliefs on migration and migrants. And I think that this approach might be also applied not only in Serbia, but also in other countries experiencing large migration. Once again, as I've mentioned in the beginning of this session, I'd like to say to the participants that they have the possibility to ask questions or to write to the chat box. by raising their hand and switching on the video and asking the question. They give the consent that their voice is, or your voice is, recorded and later on shared on the web page and our social media. Thank you once again. I've seen that there is a question and a comment. The first question in the chat box is, did you found derivation on migration related conspiracy belief by gender and or by age of respondents?
Yes,
This is the question.
yes. I mean, regarding the socio-demographic variables that we've been measured, none of them was statistically significant. And that's often the case when you look at the specific, not only the conspiracy theories regarding the toward the migrants. So there are specific groups, as we try to describe them, but they are that are mostly that mostly endorse the conspiratorial belief, but they are much more characterized by the values like social or psychological values than this socio-demographics.
I
Because
understand.
there is really a huge debate. It was a huge debate in this topic. For example, when you look at some specific conspiracy theories, that you can find some very, very low statistical significance. But here, none of them was a significant predictor of conspiratorial belief toward the migrants.
Thank you for your answer. Let's see if we have any other question in the chat box, or maybe someone else raising the hand.
I have to stop sharing. Yes, I will. I think that I stopped sharing. Is it okay?
We have another question and a comment. Thank you for the presentation. Could you say anything about how you found your participants in the study?
Well, it's like a standard procedure for a nationally representative sample, like nationally representative sample strategy or procedure. So first, you actually make parts of the Serbia and like central Serbia, Belgrade, south and north. And all of those parts of the Serbia have to be represented with the number, with the quotas that actually represents the total population, but of course in a smaller size comparing to your sample size. And then actually you, as an interviewer, you have a starting point given and provided by researchers. And then from this starting point in some cities, so you have the starting point in different cities, towns, then villages. From this starting point, you are actually need to, it depends on the sample size, but to cover like 5 to 10 respondents. And then you are entering every third house or every fifth apartment in the building, and then you are asking whether they want to participate in the studies or not. So we conduct our surveys in face-to-face manner. It is really very rare in the science or also in the agencies, research agencies, because it's not easy to enter to find participants in this way. And but still we somehow one or twice a year find our respondents in that way. So it wasn't online, although for example research agencies right now combining the face-to-face and online approach.
Okay, thank you. Now we have another question. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. One question about religiosity and higher conspiracy belief. Could it also be possible that the fact that both higher religiosity and social conservatism are predictor of higher conspiracy belief about migration is due to the correlation of religion and conservatism and not due to, for instance, high religiosity on its own?
Yes, thank you. Well, we look at the separate predictive power of each values. So, of course, as I mentioned, all those variables, all those values are connected. So it might be a matter of intercorrelation. But if you measure them, intercorrelation, inter-association among those values, but we checked it in a separate, using separate value or separate variable, and it still was a statistical significant predictor. But I would say, for example, that well, to answer your question and to broaden your question, one thing that we were not measuring, it was the type of religiosity. For example, it might be the case that this Muslim and the Orthodox religion associate in a statistical matter, I mean, in this way. But for example, some other more similar religiosity wouldn't be connected with the conspiratorial belief in this way. So, it might be worth searching and
Further research.
investigating. Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Another question and a lot of compliments about the insightful and interesting presentation. How could you conduct so more than 1,000 in-depth interviews? Did you work alone or in a team? How big was the team?
Yeah, so it's like a team in the Institute of Political Studies. So it's like 30 people or more. I think 35 people. So they are paid for interviewing, although we do not pay our participants. It's like a standard procedure in Serbia, and it's a standard team that are conducting the different kind of studies, not only this one. So they are actually first they have like a seminar regarding the specific questionnaire and specific questions that we are looking for, and more specific how to select the participants, because it's really very tricky thing. And it's like a team of people, and if you are actually following the actual political questions, it's very important not to raise, I mean, to field work to last like no more than 2 weeks or something like that. Because if you have very important political situation or some actions, then they can influence the field work and the answering of the questions, not to this specific issue, but maybe to some others. So it's like really a huge team.
Thank you. Another question. Were there significant differences between people from cities and people from regions or rural areas?
No difference, no statistically significant difference, because this question, this variable actually falls into the social demographics. Although it's really very hard to find like pure village people from the village, especially with this social media and online getting information and things like that. So it's much more precise to say cities like town and other, because it's very hard to discuss like the village as we used to to know how the village is. I mean, it's not.
Okay, thank you. There is an interest on the link of the full study or of the full paper. If you could, okay, thank you. So Jasna shared it with the participants. Do we have other questions? Okay. Maybe in the meantime, I can ask you something about your research. So, in your research, you adopted a practice-based approach, but have you thought about alternative ways such as experimental methodologies to capture conspiracy theory? Just a curiosity for future research.
Yes. I mean, this is not actually a strictly speaking like practice-based survey. It might be in a way that in a pilot part of this study, when we actually ask a few of our members of our team and also the other people from different social characteristics about the statements when we prepare our instrument. But then, when we gather the data, actually, it was a bit like structured, so it wasn't like opened to discussion, only in the pilot phase. And regarding the experimental, there is a huge number of experimental studies
Yes.
about conspiracies, especially in the sphere of how to fight against the conspiracy theories, like what kind of information, what kind of emotion can be successful in fighting against the conspiracy belief in different contents. But me personally, I'm not an experimental person, so I like experiments, but actually during my career I haven't been only I've been conducting only a few, although my students like it a lot, and it's much more easy to publish. I mean, when you have
Okay.
experiments, I mean, in in psychology in general, so it's very positive toward the experimental approach.
Okay, thank
Psychology.
you very much to you, Jasna, for your very interesting presentation. Thank you to all the participants for their questions. And I hope you have enjoyed our presentation and hope to see you in the future COREnet COST Action webinars. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation and to all the wonderful questions, and well, thanks.
Thank you.